I'm going to get started, share the screen, and welcome everybody to the COO Executives and Transition. Super excited today. We've got Cathy Lieberman here with us, and I'll be introducing her in just a little bit. But just to remind you all that the COO Executives and Transition was designed expressly for COO executives, second in command executives, operations executives, who are in trying times and transition, or maybe considering a transition. It's open to any chief operating officer globally, or second in command executive. And it aligns very closely with what we're doing here at the COO Forum. And we are currently in our third, I want to say semester, our third quarter as we're supporting you in your transitions. We have built this to be a part of your transition journey, and we've enjoyed being a part of that and helping you and serving you. And we want to continue to be a part of that as you find your next best job. So please make sure at all times when you find a new role, if you need to speak to me or Bill or Cathy or anybody else about offers you're considering, reach out to us and make sure you share those successes so we can share with you as well and celebrate. We also invite anybody who lands back into the COO operations role to join us at a global meeting as our guest. We'd love to have you be a part of our groups. Meeting courtesy, I think you're all familiar with this. Just mute if you don't mind while Cathy's talking so there's not any background noise. If you have to step away, no issue. We run business first here and also at our COO Forum meetings. Business language, no politics, and we will be recording this meeting and posting it to the Mighty Network along with all of our other meetings. This is number 30. It's hard to believe it's the 30th one. And keep all your job prospects confidential from this group. And then if you have any questions as Cathy's giving her presentation, just make sure to put it in the chat or raise your hand and she'll address that at that time. Fiona Murray, as you all know, Fiona is the go-to on everything with COO executives and transition. So if you need anything, just reach out to her and she'll take care of you. And with that, I would like to welcome Cathy Lieberman. Cathy, I'm super excited because I've known Cathy for 10 years. I had the opportunity to meet her in person in Chicago, which I have not had the opportunity to meet many of my chapter directors in person. And I've only met Bill in person once, which is also probably hard to believe, but it was a delight to meet her with my daughter while we were up there doing college visits. But little background on Cathy. She is a professional certified coach with the International Coaching Federation. Her specialty is executive coaching, leadership development, and change management. She founded the Chicago COO Forum chapter in 2010 and has facilitated over 100 meetings of operational executives. She also serves as a senior consultant with Sumitra Group International, a global corporate learning company with offices in 45 countries. Cathy's corporate career included 25 years leading and coaching managers at AT&T. In addition to her private practice, Cathy serves on the board of World Chicago, promoting citizen diplomacy and welcoming emerging leaders from all over the world. She holds a Bachelor of Science in Quantitative Methods from the University of Illinois and a coaching certification from Northwestern University School of Education. And I'm very excited to introduce Cathy Lieberman and welcome her to our meeting today.
Well, thank you, Laura. Really appreciate it. I will share my screen. I can find this here. Okay. Hello, everybody. So nice to see all of you. Thank you, Laura, and good morning. As Laura said, as the Chicago chapter director of the COO Forum for the past 10 years, I understand the importance of sharing challenges and learning from your peers. So thank you for inviting me to join your COO Executives in Transition meeting this morning. In today's session, you will gain insights on managing through change and transition based on research conducted by two renowned authors, William Bridges and Bruce Feller. The presentation will compare the authors' theories about life's transition and provide awareness of each stage of the transition journey. Toward the end of the session, you will hear from your colleagues on the impact their transition has had on them, both personally as well as professionally, and the strategies that they are employing to help them manage the transition. The session will be interactive, and I will pause periodically for questions. As Laura said, you may also post your question as they come to mind in the chat, and Laura will call on you at the appropriate time. So are there any questions before we begin? And Laura, I just want to tell you, I can only see 5 people at the top of my screen, so let me know.
Okay, you've got a good group. You're only showing 5 right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think we have about 25 people today.
All right. Okay, so let's move on. Under normal circumstances, change is constant in the workplace. Change is often externally driven, initiated by others, but transition is internal, requiring a personal adjustment to the external change. Transition requires personal accountability to successfully navigate change. Now, layer on the pandemic. As we all know, the pandemic upended lives across the globe, causing people to struggle emotionally as isolation took its toll. The impact for some has been like a major life change, such as a death in the family, a relocation, or some of you have experienced a job loss. Everybody had to change. And as we all know, change is hard. So what can we do to help ourselves and others? Well, let's start with a definition. What is transition? Transition is an exciting and unpredictable cycle of change. It's a balance of giving up all control and then owning the choices you make. Being in transition means you're caught in the meantime zone. It can sometimes feel like a bizarre sci-fi movie as you float out there somewhere untethered. You're uncomfortable, boundaries are shifting, what lies ahead is uncharted, and you don't know where the journey will lead, let alone end. Struggling to articulate these feelings is okay. In fact, it's an opportunity to seek out diverse perspectives and to learn something new. I'll give you a moment to read this quote. When we embrace change, we have a chance to grow beyond the limitations we've wrapped around ourselves to feel safe and address the fear that's holding us back. Seeking wisdom outside ourselves helps us name the fear, release it, and move on. Oftentimes, the focus on letting go of something that has been perceived as good, something familiar, or something that has worked well for us. However, taking charge of change is also about letting go of lingering grievances and resentments. Holding on to what feels bad and blaming others disempowers us to move forward proactively and positively. At some point, we need to stop admiring the problem and focus on solutions. So let's learn from the experts in this field of change and transition. First, we'll discuss William Bridges, who passed away in 2013 at the age of 80. Bridges was a business consultant and the author of the influential 1980 bestseller, Transitions, Making Sense of Life's Changes. Bridges was known for his profound contribution to change management and the thought leadership he brought to transition management. The second transition expert is Bruce Feller. In his book, Life in the Transitions, published last year, Feller reports the results of extensive research and analysis of detailed one-on-one interviews with 225 people who shared their life stories. Are there any questions so far? I'll stop the screen share so I can see you guys. Okay.
There you go.
Anybody? Okay, so then we'll move on. So let's begin with Bridges' transition model. Bridges defines change as an external event or situation that takes place, such as a new business strategy or a turn of leadership that results in a restructure. Bridges said, we experience change at many points in our lives and need to learn how to become resilient. Transition, he said, is the inner psychological process that we go through as we internalize and come to terms with the new situation that the change brings about. The starting point for dealing with transition is not the outcome, but the ending from leaving the old situation behind. In Bridges' model, he introduced 3 components individuals encounter when going through a significant personal change: the ending, the neutral zone, and the new beginning. When one experiences the ending, loss is everywhere and needs to be acknowledged before you can learn from it. Endings are characterized by feelings ranging from yearning for the good old days to ones of isolation, anxiety, exhaustion, and depression. A key realization is that the fear of change typically does not tie to the change itself, but rather to the uncertainty and lack of predictability that accompanies it. We need to acknowledge and even grieve the loss. In the neutral zone, Bridges says, we are between the old and the new. We want to go back, but it doesn't look the way it did. We want to go forward, but the future is not developed yet. We wish to be somewhere else where we can feel comfortable and confident. Does that sound familiar? Yes, I see some heads nodding. The bright spot, he said, is this is the time to experiment. While the neutral zone may be characterized by feelings of confusion, disorientation, and fear, it is meant to be a temporary space. If properly managed, this can be a time of personal renewal, a time marked by creative and innovative thought, and a time in which alternative futures, breakthrough solutions, and possibilities are explored. Bridges notes that the neutral zone is not a time, excuse me, for lamenting on the past or voicing concerns about the current. Rather, it is a time to regenerate what was lost, to a regained sense of purpose and drive, a newfound control and self-determination, renewed thoughtfulness and understanding, and new forms of commitment and support. The new beginning is typically characterized by feelings of a renewed, heightened energy level, a sense of new direction, and a positive mood, marked by a new and energetic commitment to some desired future state. However, the early stage of new beginnings is fragile. Often people relive through the fears they experienced in the neutral zone. Decreased levels of anxiety and stress, along with a genuine feeling of relief, typically materialize when one nears the halfway point of their new beginning. The new beginning creates space for everyone to become hopeful about the future. Are there any questions or comments before we move on to Bruce Feller's model? Okay, don't see any questions. So. Take a moment to read this slide. Do you agree with Feller's statement on job and skill set change? That on average, our careers will include 15 jobs and we'll change our skill sets 3 times? See if anybody has any thoughts about that. Okay, not so far. Well, I was very curious about this. So I pulled out an old resume of mine and counted the number of jobs I'd had in my career and learned that I experienced 17 jobs since college, of which 15 were before the age of 50. And I worked for 6 organizations and experienced transitioned through 2 mergers and acquisitions. And when I add my part-time jobs, I was surprised to learn I had 23 different jobs. And I can't even count the number of times I've changed my skill sets. So would anyone else like to share their experience? It's really quite surprising when you take a look back and see what unless you've actually been in the same career for a long time. Okay.
Yeah, I was going to add that my experience was very similar. In fact, I can tell you I'm doing nothing today like what I was doing when I first came out of college, right? Completely different role. And even within the same company, several different, various positions. So I think that slide was spot on.
Okay, good to know. Anybody else?
I think there's somewhat of a generational shift, right? Because there used to be a big focus on loyalty and staying with a company. And certainly that's the way my parents, saw things. My grandparents, they earned a watch for their years of service and all these things. And I came out of college with that in mind. And I was with one company for 15 years, right? And that was it. But I held many different titles, many different jobs under that umbrella. It was an awesome company. I had great stock, benefits and all these things that I didn't want to give up for a really long time. And I just felt this tremendous sense of loyalty as well. And I know that's just not the norm. And I've even heard feedback that, it's too long to stay at a company. And, I don't know how I feel about that, to be truthful, but, and then I held another position for 5 years. So it's like, I don't know that will happen, although I am so much more in touch now with the fact that, to get less emotional about business decisions I've had to do in my own career. And I certainly have had to, have the unfortunate experience of layoffs and those things. And understanding that for a company, business is business, even when that means job loss, even though they can be very thoughtful and helpful in that to that end, but that you have to, as an individual, be a little bit more nimble and think from your own perspective, because a company will. I did. And so that's just a real big shift for me, because loyalty was sort of beat into me as, one of the most positive traits you could have. So I think younger people are going to have even more jobs, because it seems to me that people change jobs every couple of years based on what I saw when we would, be posting for jobs. And that seems to be the norm. You gain experience at different companies. Can you get a couple of years with Amazon? Can you get a couple of years with Microsoft? And people look at that very positively, where, so I've really had to make a shift there.
Yes, I made that shift as well. I mean, when I spent 28 years at one company. So but I had so many wonderful experiences and learned so many new skills in so many different jobs. So really, they were different jobs just within the same company. So
the same is true with me, Cathy. I stayed for the same association for 26 years. Believe it or not, but my position changed throughout the years from a publication assistant while I was going to a school, and ended up director of finance administration to COO and deputy executive director. So even though I was at one organization, but I had different responsibilities.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, because when I first saw the slide, I said, really, 15 jobs? That doesn't seem possible, but yeah, it is true. So thank you for sharing that. Anybody else have any thoughts they'd like to share?
Yeah, Cathy, hi.
Hi, Cathy.
I was just participating in a conference last week, the tail end of last week, and I probably have these stats a little off, but they kind of talked about, and this is Joanne, your point, they said the average for boomers was like 7 years. The average for Gen X was like 3 to 5. The average for millennials is 1 to 1.5, and Gen Z's, so it's absolutely generational in that respect. And then to your point about transitions, I mean, my journey from, engineering in school to coming right out into sales, going into consulting, and now I'm, chief operating officer for a wealth management firm, completely different skill sets, completely unpredictable outcomes. And that's been my coaching to youth. Now, people in high school now, things like that, they're like, I don't know what I want to do. I'm like, yeah, you're not going to know what you want to do for your whole life. So get yourself ready to love change. And so it's a good point.
It's really good advice. Yeah, I think there's a big misunderstanding with young people that they've got to, choose their life's career, and they just need to pick something and try it, and then figure out if that's working for them or not. So yeah, very good points. Thank you. Anybody?
As far as transitions go, I college was in life sciences, biology. And then shortly after that, it was IT. many years in IT, and then getting MBA, and then getting into management. So quite a transition. Yeah. So definitely, you don't know where you're going to end up.
No, you still don't. And it's good to see you. Hello, Kamal.
Yeah.
I'm
Hi,
saying your name
Cathy.
right? Is it Kamal?
Yes,
Okay.
That's right.
Okay, good. All right, I know you have a story to share at the end, so we will definitely get to that. Okay,
Yeah,
anybody else? Okay, all right, so we'll go back to the slides. So Feller suggests that our life experiences are not linear as we might imagine and expect. Life does not progress from one predictable life stage to another on a tidy schedule. For some, the patterns of linear life do occur, such as adulthood, marriage, children, empty nest, grandchildren, and retirement. But many do not experience all these stages or in that sequence, or on any anticipated schedule. This same nonlinearity occurs in other domains of our lives. Nonlinearity helps explain why we sometimes feel so overwhelmed. We are trained to expect that our lives will unfold in a predictable series of life's chapters, which of course is unrealistic. So what really happens? We experience what Feller calls disruptors. These are changes that throw off the equilibrium of our lives. They mostly involve major changes like marriage, births, divorce, death, illness, starting and losing jobs. However, disruptors can simply be deviations from daily life. The number and variety of these disruptors, along with the span of our lives, is increasing. Among the 225 life stories he heard, Feller identified 52 different types of disruptors across the 5 broad categories of our beliefs, our body, our identity, love, and work. Looking for patterns, Feller and his team analyzed the content of his interviews and discovered that as adults, we will face an average of 35 disruptors in our life. And this means on average, we are experiencing a disruptor event every 12 to 18 months. 1 in 10 of these disruptors becomes what Feller calls a lifequake, or a massive change that leads to a life transition. Feller defines a lifequake as a forceful burst of change that leads to a period of upheaval, transition, and renewal in one's life. Think of these moments as meaning vacuums where the air is sucked out of our lives and the previous balance of tendencies that give us agency, belonging, and cause is wiped clean. What follows is a series of aftershocks, ripple effects from the initial jolt that often elicit fear and confusion that can also be signs of healing. People typically experience between 3 and 5 lifequakes. Given that 75% of lifequakes take at least 4 years to weather, it means a big portion of our lives is in a state of significant transition. The upshot is that we can spend half our lives in this unsettled state. I'll pause here. Are there any comments or questions? Let's see. Okay.
That's very true. What you are saying is very true.
You can relate. We don't often think about it, but when you do see this, it is all very familiar. Okay. So how can we manage through these life quakes? Similar to bridges, Feller has 3 phases in his transition model: the long goodbye, the messy middle, and the new beginning. And within these phases, Feller identified 7 tools to help people get through their life transitions. In the long goodbye, the tools are accept it, identify your emotions, and cease resisting. And second is mark it. Use familiar rituals to help process the change. And similar to Bridges' neutral zone, the messy middle is about what happens when we are in the state of in between. It involves giving up on the old ways and experimenting with new ones, moving beyond what's past and beginning to define what's coming. The tools in the messy middle are share it, give up old mindsets and make room for new ideas. Shed it and then share it. Seek wisdom from others, socialize the process, and ask for feedback. And in the new beginning, the tools are launch it, unveil your new self, and tell it, compose a fresh story. The seventh tool, create it or try new things, can occur during any of the three stages. And the 7 tools collectively form Feller's transition toolkit. In summary, the toolkit includes accepting the situation, marking the change, shedding old ways, creating new outlets, sharing your transformation, unveiling your new self, and telling your story. And while not always easy to execute, these tools can prove remarkably restorative and reinvigorating. First, people use a number of these tools, whether instinctively or because they worked on them. But according to Feller, no one uses all 7. Second, the tools are rarely used in sequence. Many of the tools for navigating transitions have an element of time built into them. They involve letting go of the past, marking the end of a life phase, beginning fresh initiatives, and introducing your new story. So let's review the similarities and differences between Bridges and Feller's transition models. You may recall that William Bridges said, transitions begin with endings, continue with the neutral zone, and conclude with a new beginning. And you need all 3 phases and in that order for a transition to work. Bruce Feller named the 3 phases similarly, but he said these steps do not necessarily happen in sequence. Feller says, a transition is an adhesive and a healer. It takes something broken and begins to repair it. It takes something shaken and helps to steady it. And it takes something shapeless and starts to give it shape. I'll pause here for questions. Anything come to mind about the 2 models? Okay. Oops.
They just seem to replicate the change in how business has been done over the years. Bridge is more classical and the way that many of our careers probably began, and Feller seems more in tune with the reality of our world today.
Yeah, good point. And I do think, though, that even Bridges' stories, if you read his book, you can definitely relate, even though the information is the way it was many years ago. But yes, thank you for that, John.
Sure.
Anybody else? Okay. So how do we manage through change and transition? Well, this is where the process begins. The first step is building awareness. This is where most of my coaching engagements begin. We need to take the time to reflect on potentially limiting beliefs, behaviors, habits, and outmoded ways of thinking, acting, or relating to others that are no longer serving us. Consider asking yourself these 3 questions. What are you holding on to that's preventing positive progress? Who might you be giving your power away to? And what would be to your advantage of letting go? And who remembers step 2? Anyone? Oh, I guess I went through the slide too fast. Acceptance. What happens when we remain in denial? Have any of you experienced denial?
Yeah, Cathy, I think you're just stunned when transition kind of comes upon you, right? It's not planned, and and most times it's abrupt, and it kind of, totally shatters your world temporarily, right? And I think, we do remain in denial because it's what's most comfortable. Luckily, COOs are agents of change, right? So we like change and we don't hopefully stay there too long. And I think that's what I found for me is that I'm going to find a solution no matter what. So you can only, life does come at you and it depends on what's going on in all your circumstances to how you react to that. But I think ultimately you've got to dust yourself off and say, yeah, changes might need to be made. What worked before is not working now. And certainly in the world of transition, many of us haven't been in transition. I had never been in transition. So like the idea that I can't delegate activities to people and I can't have a marketing person clean up and make what I say brilliant and nobody's going to remind me of meetings or any of those things. It was that was like difficult. And it was, I had to go back to kind of the early part of my career to be that person for myself, right? And then say, well, what are my gifts that I can bring to this? And what do I need to learn? And that was, a big part of the process. But you cannot get there if you're going to sit in a pity party for yourself. You have to accept that it is, and that you're going to do what you need to do to make it happen. And I think where I think this is driving is that it's really one of the better times. You'll look back at these transitions as some of the best times of your life because you were able to make leaps and bounds, changes for yourself in your life, reprioritization. There's just so many wonderful things. But yeah, you can't sit in distress or denial for very long, or you won't be able to move forward. So
yeah, very true. That happens is you just stay stuck, and you can't move. And it happens to everybody. It's just a matter of how long, right, that you stay in that. But recognizing as these things happen, that is the pattern that they will follow. So really we can all learn from that because we've got many more transitions to go in our lives. Thank you for that. Appreciate it, Joanna. It's Joanna, right? Did I have that right? Okay.
Sorry, it's Joanne.
Oh, Joanne. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Let's move on. So the third step is to begin the process of managing yourself through the transition. And to do this, I recommend that managing your results, your relationships, and reactions by examining the current of life that is passing through you. In other words, what are you feeling? Focus on the force of life rather than letting your ego take hold of you. Move forward with the knowledge that your past successes will prepare you for the future. And lastly, share your story with others to gain new insights. So let's stop here and see who would like to share their story. And I think Kamal has a story he wants to share. So I'll stop.
Yeah, thanks, Cathy. Well, it probably is not unique. Considering we're all probably going through the same thing. But, as a senior operations leader, I've always been approached for new responsibilities, just like many of us, I guess. I came back to California after working as a country general manager in Istanbul for 10 years. My background is mostly in chemical manufacturing industry, but the skill set obviously can be applied to many other industries. So I decided to have my own practice as a management consultant in California. Of course, as I started developing my business and network, the pandemic hit. And first time in my career, I found myself looking for my next opportunity. At first, I applied for posted positions directly, just looking through LinkedIn and Indeed and Glassdoor, feeling confident I would be snatched up as I displayed all my accomplishments in my resume, and did not get much traction or any traction at all. So I started reaching out and connecting with people whenever I saw positions posted I would first connect with people at that company, and then submit applications. And I got a few interviews that way, but over time I realized that it's just going to be, I have in order to have any chance of being considered, I had to reach out and connect with people before the positions were posted. It seemed they either had someone lined up for the position, or they had, the only way I would have it, basically the only way I would have a chance to be even considered for a senior position had to be if I had access to the position before it was posted. Because by the time it was posted, they either had someone lined up for the position, or they posted it to comply. And once they posted, they received many applications, and it was practically impossible to get through. So right now, I just work on my network, and I do not send applications to any open positions. I believe my next opportunity is going to come through people I get to know in the process.
That's
personally,
great.
Yeah, I mean, just personally, it's my full-time job. So, I just try to spend time with my family in the meantime.
So tell me, what would you describe as the ending or the long goodbye for you?
Just accepting the fact that people are not going to come running to have me in their team.
And how difficult was it for you to let go?
That was a challenge, because even though it was reminded a number of times by others, by friends, etc., I simply thought, oh, they're wrong. They don't know what I am capable of. So, and then through networking, I realized so many people are in the same position, in the same, in the same situation, basically. So it was easier to accept. It was okay, well, this is reality. I'm not so unique.
Right. So how do you feel you're managing through this neutral zone, or messy middle, as they refer to it?
Well, accepting the realities, accepting the feedback I get from people around me, and also understanding that they're not, because there's a tendency to think you're better than that. There's a tendency to think that, oh, I'm unique and I don't have to follow all these standards.
Yeah.
And realizing that that's not necessarily the case, and there are many people in the same situation. And when people make recommendations, or when I read books or talking to coaches, and they say you have to go through these phases and you have to do this and that and that, I have to accept that, well, maybe there's a point to that.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like you've learned a lot. So how do you feel now?
I'm sorry?
How do you feel now? Can you envision this new beginning for yourself?
Definitely. I'm getting more traction. I mean, even just by networking, just like they said, you optimize your LinkedIn, you optimize your resume based on what you're trying to do or the position. And through networking, you get to meet very nice people who will, everybody seems to want to help. Just like I find myself trying to help everybody I meet.
That's great. Yeah. I think sometimes people don't realize how willing people are to help and how much they actually do want to. So thank you. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. Thanks, Cathy.
All right. Who else? Sima, I think you had a story you might want to share.
Sure, yes. Kemal, I very much relate to what you said. I found myself out of job after almost over 20 some years at one organization. And I thought that everything was going well. It was a change in the management that caused that. And I'd say it was like a punch in the gut, even worse than that. So maybe for some of you, it was the pandemic, but for me, it was rather different and something that I never expected it. So definitely, I had to really concentrate on what I need to do. Joanne mentioned we are, as COOs, we are the people that we are always looking for changes. I admit it wasn't easy. Friends and families definitely helped me to focus on the good things that are in my life, not just the job. And what has helped me the past few months have been, as Kemal mentioned, groups like this. We understand each other, especially we've been in that position for some years. I also found out a lot of other networking opportunities by chance or by having others to let me know. There are days that I am busy at different networking groups from morning till 8, 9 p.m. at night. So I'm involved with, doing mock interviews, helping me with those, doing the elevator pitch, as you all said, changing the LinkedIn. But the networking through these meetings, also from individuals who are looking for a job, has been helpful. Somebody told me, oh, I know this executive recruiter. You might want to reach out to her. She has an opening for a head of operations. So I couldn't agree more with what Kemal is saying. I've tried all of these places, from Glassdoor to ZipRecruiter, you name it, through ASAE. I also tried to do emails with my resumes and all of my package to organizations that I like to work. I've had interviews, quite a few of them, but obviously didn't turn out the way I wanted. And then I realized maybe my interview is not the way it should be, or I'm not doing it the way it should be. So I suggest to all of you, we never think we've always hired people for positions. Now we are on the other side. So we need to be very concise. We need to really have that selling ourselves in a very short amount of time to those recruiters. I had one interview and they asked me, tell me about yourself. And I went on and on and on and talked about like 15 minutes. And then later, when through these networking groups, they told me 1 minute and 36 seconds. The rest, they are not gonna listen and you are not gonna get hired. So the reason I'm giving you all of that, I would be happy, you can find me through LinkedIn. COO in transition, really thank you to Bill, to all of you for having this connection for all of us. This is different than the others because we know what we want, but there are also very good other groups that I am involved right now, and they have really helped me to even manage the, I would say, stress, anxiety, all of that I experienced. I don't tell that to everybody, but I tell you all. So it hasn't been easy, but they definitely helped. And Cathy, what you mentioned this morning, it couldn't be further from it's really the process that at least I've been going through.
Glad to hear it. And thank you, Cindy, for sharing
so
that.
thank you so much. Feel free to join me on LinkedIn.
Okay, will do. And I appreciate you sharing your emotions as you work through this neutral zone or the messy middle, which is an emotional roller coaster for everyone. So thank you. Anybody else want to share? Okay. All right, so we'll go back to slide share. Whoops. Okay, so we've explored how to manage ourselves through transition, but as leaders, we also need to support others. So some of you in your story shared a little bit of how you're doing that. So let's talk about that for a moment. The key question strategic leaders must ask themselves is how can we help others complete their transition so that they spend as little time as possible moving from the ending, the long goodbye, through their neutral zone or the messy middle and into their new beginning. Are you empathetic and compassionate with others as they experience a transition? I imagine the answer is yes, since you have been through this yourself, you know what others need. And what can you do to support, encourage signs of regrowth and reorientation? Anybody want to share their thoughts on that? How you may have helped others through this process? And not just related to jobs, but any kind of transition that a colleague or friend has gone through.
Yeah, I'll jump in. Hi, Cathy. Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Can you hear me okay? Hopefully, I'm still setting up my new office. So yeah, a couple things. One of them is just being a sounding board.
All right, I'll hop on.
To be honest, is just being available for folks to talk or, you know, step through LinkedIn profiles and you know, offer different perspectives. Because I mean, you see, you get in the weeds of being in transition, you can get a little bit of tunnel vision, right? It's like, hey, I'm doing this. This is what I'm doing. I'm going down this road, and you lose a little bit of the things around you. So sometimes it's just, you know, you need somebody to come in and, hey, have you considered this? And, oh, that's what I needed to hear this morning. And then, you know, they're off to the races again. Because I know it's a long, grueling path at the sea level when you're in transition. So I'd say, you know, for a lot of people, it's just having somebody that's there alongside and showing some encouragement and broadening the vision a little bit.
Yes, it's amazing how when you've been through this yourself, how it really changes, and you really realize how much you want to help others. And when you think about that, that's when you realize, okay, networking is no question the way to go, that people genuinely will want to help. I mean, there's always someone that may not, but the majority of people you reach out to will. And Josh, it's so good to see you. I think we corresponded, but I don't think I ever met you visually. So this is nice. Thank you. Okay, so we'll get to the end here. The key question, oops, I'm sorry, let's move on. In conclusion now, broad and accelerating change is our current reality, and we can and should expect more. Transitions are filled with tumult and unrest, but they're also filled with purging and dazzling creativity. There is power in accepting change, understanding the structure of transitions, and engaging with the tools you have learned today. Believe in yourself, trust the process, follow your heart, and you will find your pathway. Never give up on a happy ending. Any final comments or questions before I give it back to Laura? Anybody? Well, I would love your feedback, so please send me an email and connect with me in LinkedIn. Maybe my network will be helpful to you. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Cathy. And does anybody have any discussion or comments on that before I wrap things up? Yeah, I highly recommend connecting to Cathy. Her name is unique. You can probably find her. She's in Chicago. Connect there. And then, Cathy, thank you very much for your time with us. We've been running this transition group since I think it was September 2020, and everybody's in a different phase. And so it's very insightful to see all these phases, because I think everybody is not in the same place, and you can put yourself in a different place and maybe reach out to somebody who might be ahead of you, which might be helpful and encouraging too. So it's the nice thing about this network as well is that I see on LinkedIn that many of you are connected, and that's a good network. And Cathy's could expand that as well. I'm going to share my screen super quick, because I just wanted to show you what we've got going on next couple of weeks. Josh Reneker, who's on with us today, I'll give him maybe 30 seconds to kind of share what he's doing, but he's going to be leading our session next week in more of a workshop. So expect to join in and be able to share and discuss some different things on articulating your value prop. And then on the 18th, we have Derek Arden, who's a global speaker on negotiating, that is going to come in and talk with us. And he is a lot of fun. So make sure you join in. It'll be an interactive session as well. And then on the 25th, before Memorial Day weekend, we have Rick Clody, who's a very good friend of the CO Forum, who will be joining us. He's an expert in recruiting and talent acquisition, leads the Clody group out of Nashville. And he is I call it behind the curtain, which there will be some behind the curtain things from executive recruiters that I think is important, because sometimes you never know the answers to those if you've gone through one, and you kind of wish you did, and he might be able to help us with that. And then we're going to skip a week between Memorial Day because we're on Tuesdays and some people might be extending their break. But we'll come back with Steve Moss, and this will be very interesting as well. He's out of the DC area, and he's going to talk with us on succeeding in your next job. And he's with specifically a consultancy that's called Executive Springboard, and he works with people and making sure they're successful when they land. So it's going to be very exciting. And Josh, I'm going to give you 30 seconds to kind of share a little bit about what you're doing next week.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'm looking forward to diving in a little bit, to a little bit of a flashback to segments that I shared when we were talking about resumes and interviewing. But really, we're going to dive in a little bit to how to really articulate the value that you bring to an organization, and being able to articulate that in different segments of time. So sometimes you have all of 30 seconds to really blast somebody with, this is the value I bring. Sometimes you have 10 minutes, and being able to recognize and be able to share those things and then back them up with items that are in your LinkedIn profile and on your resume. So yeah, it's gonna be an interactive workshop. We're gonna dive in, and I'm really looking forward to it. It should be a good time.
Very good. Well, thanks, Josh. And I'm looking forward to the session next week as well. And we'll break a few minutes early, and thank you everybody for joining, and hope to see you next week.
Bye.
Thank you, Cathy. Thank you, everyone.
Have a great day.